Welcome back to the Garden Podcast, where we cultivate our faith one verse at a time. Now you see a little tree here and a little snake here. The garden represents the order that God wants to bring to his people even today. And the snake is going to represent the chaos monster that is trying to go against God's plan. You're going to hear these themes all over this podcast when we read our Bible and when we cultivate our faith one verse at a time. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the garden. If you noticed already, I'm wearing the shirt I was wearing last week because I'm recording these back to back. So doesn't really matter. If you guys would, first of all, thank you for joining the Garden Podcast, where we cultivate our faith one verse at a time. Today, I'm just going to read a verse I opened up to here that kind of goes along with being living as a new Christian. Okay, this title right here and this verses I'm about to read is called "Living the New Life." So, we're going to be reading out of Ephesians 4. Verse 17, and let's just jump right into it. Therefore I say this and testify in the Lord, you should no longer live as the Gentiles live, in the futility of their thoughts. They are darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God, because of the ignorance that is in them and because of the hardness of their hearts. They became callous and gave themselves over to promiscuity for the practice of every kind of impurity with a desire for more and more. So right there, that tells us as a Christian that we shouldn't desire more and more. My video from last week, I mentioned Romans 8:28 and how God isn't just interested in giving you everything you want, because if you live in America like I do, the westernized church has become so individualistic, when really the Christians or followers of the way in biblical times were very family oriented. God is interested in blessing and saving your whole family. Oftentimes that word healing and salvation in the Bible comes from the same idea, comes from the same word, because salvation is healing your soul and the broken person you were before. So when we're living this new life, we cannot be interested in what we used to do. We can't just desire more and more things on earth, because none of us knows, our timeline. We shouldn't be interested in storing things up here on earth, because what's the point, Not saying you can't build a business, not saying you can't save money, anything like that. But if your desire is for worldly things, then you need a more kingdom mindset. And as a follower of Jesus, as a Christian, our minds should be changed. When Romans talks about renewing the mind, I actually told this to my students in Sunday school. This isn't like the Holy Spirit taking over your brain and changing your mind for you. Okay, I think that's what a lot of people think, and maybe that's even what I used to think when I read that verse. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That doesn't mean that like God's going to possess you and do everything for you. That means you need to put off unholiness. You need to change from what you used to be. I'm not saying God can't heal you like from addiction or from things that you used to do. God can definitely do that, and he does. And even sometimes when he does, we can revert back and fall back into that sinful lifestyle. So really it's us. There's a reason that the New Testament and Jesus and really Paul, writing to Ephesus right now, he talks about the Gentiles and the futility of their thoughts. Because a lot of your life, really everything you do starts in here. If you have negative thoughts, if you have addictive thoughts, we need to quickly put that off and think about things that are good, think about things that are holy, righteous, just, think about the good things of God. Think about how good he has been to you. So a part of that renewing of the mind is making a conscious effort, a conscious decision, intentional decision to continue to follow Christ. Because how many of you know that as soon as you, kind of turn off your brain, sometimes we get home from work and we just want to put on the TV. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that innately, but it can become an idolatrous habit where you're watching more TV and just trying to take a break rather than going and taking it to the Lord. It starts with the thoughts. Okay, it's this new life that we live for Christ has to be an intentional path that we're on. And I know the Bible talks about He will be a lamp to your feet. I promise you, Jesus is going to show you the next step and the next step. But we have to keep our minds surrendered to Christ. Verse 20, Ephesians 4, verse 20. But that is not how you came to know Christ, assuming you heard about Him and were taught by Him, as the truth is in Jesus, to take off your former way of life, the old self, that is corrupted by deceitful desires, to be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and to put on the new self, the one created according to God's likeness in righteousness and purity in the truth. Here's what I've realized when reading the Bible. Sometimes, because I highlight with these highlighters, sometimes I'll be reading it and I'm like, oh, I wonder what this word means, or I wonder what he's talking about here, and I'll look up that word on the Bible app or the Step Bible app and click on the word. When if I would have just kept reading the next 2 verses, it answers that very question I just had. So I think I just mentioned Romans. I think it says it in there too, and this is kind of a weird version, but it literally just said everything I was kind of explaining. To take off your former way of life, easier said than done. But I promise you can do it with Jesus' help, because for where we are weak, He is strong. The old self that is corrupted by deceitful desires, to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, the one created according to God's likeness, in righteousness and purity of the truth. He's saying that the new self is the one created by God, and you are already made in His image. So you and your new self in the spirit of Christ have been made by God. Okay, you are not those deceitful desires. You may have them, but that's not who you are. Okay, some Christians beat themselves up because they're like, man, I had another lustful thought, or I had another deceitful thought, and I betrayed Jesus, and He's already forgiven you. I'm not telling you to be like light with sin, but please just move on. Please know that you are righteous because Jesus is righteous. And that's why He died on the cross. Now, in saying that, that's not any excuse to let you keep on sinning, because Paul talks about, should we take for granted the cross so that we can go on sinning? Shall we just take advantage of grace? No. But grace is there when you need it, and we do need it every single day. So knowing that we're forgiven, we can still choose to have a renewed mind, because it says, the new self, the one created according to God's likeness, to be more like Jesus, to walk in His way. Let's read a few more verses, and I'm going to keeps this one shorter than last week. Therefore, putting away lying, speak the truth, each one to his neighbor, because we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, and don't give the devil an opportunity. Did I mention this just now? I think it was last week. But this is the verse from last week I was talking about. It says, be angry, but do not sin. Do not sin in your anger. Let yourself calm down. Don't try to address an issue with someone if you still feel very like you want to punch someone in the face, okay? It's not a good time to talk to someone. It says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And I really just think that means don't wait too long. This note down here, it says, though Paul's literal be angry may be a genuine command to righteous anger, many versions rightly take the imperative in a conditional way, in your anger, or if you get angry. That might be addressing a different issue. So in your anger, do not sin. Okay? Don't let the sun go down. And I don't think that, you can look it up if you want. I don't think that's quite a literal thing. Somebody makes you mad, just address it first thing as soon as possible. Don't let the sun go down in your anger. Don't give the devil an opportunity. Like I've mentioned before, the devil is looking for opportunities to split your church. And if he can start with individuals and separate them, just like the one sheep that's separated from the 99. Now that one sheep is weak by themselves. And so the devil is going to be like a wolf who is trying to separate the pack, because we are weaker in lower numbers. We are stronger when we come together. And you are definitely stronger when you have Christ, when you lead your life by giving glory to Christ first, instead of trying to do everything on your own. So if somebody has offended you, please try to address it. If you feel like you can't talk to them by yourselves, bring a friend. Tell them that, hey, we really need to talk about this, but I'm going to bring someone with me so they can mediate and talk to your pastor about it. But make sure you do it the biblical way. If you don't know the biblical way of addressing an issue, it usually goes like addressing the individual, and then the second step is, if you can't get through to them, to bring somebody with you as a witness. If you still can't get through to them, and it's a big enough issue, especially a moral issue, address the church and say, hey, I tried to talk to this person, and take it from there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please look it up. Okay, the way to handle confrontation. All right, like I said, I'm gonna keep it short. That is a little bit about living the new way of life. We just learned that the new self is created by God. And of course, your body and everything about you was created by God. But this new self has to be an intentional thought process. Okay, it's not going to happen on accident. Holiness is not an accident. Being common is the opposite of holiness and living like the rest of the world. If you want to see my video on being holy, I think it's my first, second, maybe third one. I don't know, somewhere in there. I have a video on that talking about how the opposite of holy is not unholiness, but it is something else. And if you want to know what that is, please go watch that video. Thank you guys for watching the Garden Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this shorter episode. Let me know in the comments if you want longer videos, shorter videos. I do need to post more, clips, shorts, to promote this a little bit better. But let me know in the comments what kind of long form videos you like in this style as far as the podcast. If you want shorter videos, then you'll have to let me know. Thanks for watching the Garden Podcast, where we cultivate our faith one verse at a time. All right.